Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then I want you to know that this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I'll help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you're able, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the Married to Addiction podcast. I'm Julie Sanford, and today I'm going to just kind of be giving you a little bit of an intro to the podcast, about who I am, a little bit about my story, and what you can expect here. So first of all, I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here. I'm super excited to be doing this podcast because I had a previous podcast before Married to Addiction. I worked with women over 40, and I had a podcast for that. And I love podcasting. I think it's just such a great way to get information, give information, and just be supported. And I love the on-the-go aspect of it too, because we're all so busy, right? So first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. So again, my name is Julie. I am a wife. We are celebrating our 13th anniversary, I believe, this year, wedding anniversary. And I have 3 children. I have a 31-year-old daughter, a 24-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son. Yes, I started completely over. It's been an adventure for sure. I also have a grandson who is 15 months younger than my son. So they're best buddies. They are kind of growing up together. So that's really cool. Fun fact about me, because I always like to throw a fun random fact in there. I'm a lover of all things retro, particularly things from the 40s and 50s. I love 40s music. I am currently incorporating a lot of like retro decor into my house, just all about the retro. I love it. So why am I here specifically, and why am I doing a podcast about being married to someone who is struggling with addiction? Well, because my husband is an alcoholic. He's currently in recovery. He has 4 years sober, but we went through this battle together for quite a number of years, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I just really have felt led to share my experience, to share what I've learned, to share, to give support and encouragement and hope to other women who are in the middle of it right now. It is the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I know that you can totally relate to that if you're here, because you are probably struggling with this as well. So what I want to bring you here is just tons of mostly encouragement for starters, because I know that it just feels so lonely and so draining, and you feel so unsupported, because I know that a lot of times for me and for a lot of the other women I talk to, there's a lot of secrecy involved because there's stigma around it and there's shame around it. And a lot of times we're going through all of this in hiding without a lot of support. So that's the main thing that I want to give you through this podcast. But it's also going to be a lot of education as well, because I did learn a ton walking through this with my husband. I also took part in his recovery process. I went to his recovery facility for a full week. They had a family week there. So I learned just so much through that process, and just through the process of living this and going through it. No one can understand what this is like someone else who's been through it. You know, our families try to be supportive if we open up to them, and our friends, but you just can't know how deeply this impacts you unless you have lived it, unless you've walked through it. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I want to be bringing this podcast to you. I want you to know, and this was the same for my last podcast, my podcasts are very loose, they're very relaxed, and they are mostly unedited. I don't go to a lot of trouble to take out the ums and the you knows and all of that stuff, because I want this to feel like I'm having a conversation with you. I don't want it to be too polished, because life isn't too polished, and this journey most definitely is not polished. So it's going to be raw and unedited, and there's going to be some real talk, and You might hear me fussing at my cat in the middle of an episode. That's just kind of how I roll. That's like my style. And like I said, I just want it to be really conversational. So that's kind of how I do things. I also want you to know that these episodes are not going to take up a lot of your time. So I know that some podcasts are really long, like the people try to record hour-long episodes so that the people who are listening feel like they are getting a good amount of content. And while that's great, I know that for me, it's hard to commit to that big of a chunk of time generally because, of course, I'm busy like we all are. And if it's longer than, 15, 20 minutes, I'll find myself having to stop and then go back to it. And then I kind of can't remember what I listened to last time, what we'd already talked about. And so I find myself rewinding, and it just takes more time to listen to it in chunks like that for me. So what I want to do is I want to just bring you relatively short episodes. So they're usually no more than 20 minutes. If I have guests on, which I plan to do in the future, they'll probably be a little bit longer. But I know that with people who are in this position, you're also probably listening to this in secret. When I was looking for things to help me deal with a situation, a lot of times I was just doing it completely on my own and trying to fit it in, when the kids weren't around, or of course when my husband wasn't around, and I was just kind of trying to get whatever I could to help me. But I didn't have a lot of time to devote to that, and I was doing it on my own. So I don't want this to be a huge time commitment for you, but I want it to be value packed as well. So just know that it's not going to take up a ton of your time. This podcast and Married to Addiction in general is faith-based. I'm a Christian. It is a huge part of my life. It is a huge part of this whole process and this path that I walked with my husband, of my recovery, of his recovery, all of it. So if that is something that's not for you, this might not be the podcast for you, but it's just such a big part of what I think works and what I know works well. And so I absolutely do integrate that into my podcasts, my programs, my social media, pretty much everything I do. I do want to ask that you, going forward, that you keep an open mind. If this is one of the first exposures that you've had to listening to help for family of an alcoholic, and wives in particular, I want you to know that you might encounter some different ways of looking at things. I know that when I first started pursuing, things like Al-Anon and what they taught and stuff like that, at first I was thinking to myself, this isn't what I need. Like this does not feel anything like what I need or what I'm looking for. And I put it off for a long time for that reason. And I really regret doing that, because I know that once I embraced different ways of looking at things, that it helped tremendously. So I want you to have an open mind. If you're hearing things that sound a little bit different than what you're used to or what you think you're looking for, I want to promise you that everything that I'm bringing to you is important. Was an important part of my journey, and I truly believe that it will be an important part of your journey as well. So keep an open mind, even if you're hearing something that's a little bit different than what you thought it would be. We're going to talk a little bit more in the next episode on specifically how Married to Addiction is different. Of course, there are some other entities out there that help families who are in this position, but Married to Addiction is different. And I address a lot of the things here, and I will address a lot of the things here that I felt were missing for me when I was going through this, and things that I felt were important to me that I couldn't find elsewhere. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more on the next episode. But for now, I just want to thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this. I hope that this gives you kind of a good understanding of what the podcast will be about going forward. And I'm just thrilled to have you here, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Married to Addiction podcast today. I would love to give you a free gift to thank you for being here. It's my free ebook, and it's called 10 Powerful Prayers to Pray Over Your Husband and Your Marriage. All you have to do is head to my website, marriedtoaddiction.com, and look for the tab that says free ebook. You just enter your information and you will have instant access to the download. I hope it really helps you. I'm praying for you, and thank you so much again for being here. I'll talk to you soon.